want to do? Yell about David Bednar? You want to finger point Derek Shelton? You want to get into naming names? I don't know. I'm not feeling that. Good morning to you. Good Monday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, those come highly recommended right about now. I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. Dodgers 6, Pirates 5 in 10 innings. That would be a 3-game sweep in Los Angeles. That would be 7 losses in a row. That would be 5 games under 500. And you'd better believe that would be last place. Home again. Home again. And while I appreciate that mathematically they would still be in this, I appreciate a lot that Andrew McCutchen not only hit 2 home runs yesterday to rally the Pirates yet again. By the way, in these 7 straight losses, they've scored 5 or more runs in 5 of those. And I also appreciate what Kutch had to say afterward to reporters out in L.A.
It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you're from or what you did yesterday. You got to show up the next day and be ready to win. Can't feel bad for yourself. Game doesn't feel bad for anybody. Game doesn't care who you are. Game doesn't care what you did last year. Game doesn't care if you was an MVP or an All-Star. You got to be ready to go the next day. And that's what I've learned. And I don't care that I hit 2 homers today. I got to be ready to go tomorrow, try and win the ball game. So, that's what we have to do. We got to put a big boy pants on and go. And, man, no one feels bad for anybody. We don't feel bad for each other. And we just got to shake it off and be ready to go the next day.
That's Kutch. That's who he is. He's a competitor. He also focuses on the controllables. I've told you guys a billion times over the years, Kutch isn't that rah-rah guy to stand in the middle of the room, but he is that guy to show you the way out. And that is the way out, what he described. Good. Multiple cap tips to the great number 22, who, by the way, yesterday ascended to number 5 on the franchise's all-time list for extra base hits, behind only Honus Wagner, Roberto Clemente, Willie Stargell, and Paul Wainer. Talk about a list. But yeah, that's what we've got. We're how many years into this? No playoffs since 2015. No nothing since the front office took over this one in 2020. And on this summer's day in Southern California, Kutch was still your best player. Yeah, that's why I'm not really all that micro-ish at the moment. I'd rather go macro. I'd rather survey this entire scene and start thinking about the questions that really need to be asked. I don't mean of them. I actually don't particularly care what anybody running the team has to say right now. I'm talking about the questions that people like yourself who follow the franchise passionately enough to be listening to a podcast about it the morning after a 7th straight loss. I care about the alumni, as I'm often pointing out. There are former players, former coaches, former employees, people who live and breathe for the Pittsburgh Baseball Club. And this season, my friends, is now the latest to get shot to smithereens. The why, to me, isn't as important in the moment as the what. I'll get to the why. It might not be tomorrow or this week or even a month from now. But the what is what matters. You don't always get to hide if you're Ben Cherington or Derek Shelton or whoever behind the specifics of the day. You don't always get, well, Bednar's really just not locating his fastball right now. He's not. And you don't always get, well, O'Neal Cruz is struggling, but he's learning and he has all this talent. What you need to do, what you really need to do, and this is just a small sliver of the leadership that the Pirates lack at the very, very top of the structure, meaning, of course, Bob Nutting. Everyone talks about payroll, and I keep telling you that's not the problem. It's not the main one anyway. The problem is that he can look at all of this and not bring himself to ask how the most recent Baseball America organizational rankings had the Pirates system ranked 27th out of 30. 27th. The objective of this taking 5 years, this rebuild, this gutting, all of the money that was saved too in the process. The objective was to build up the system. And what the system has produced, by and large, are Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, and nobody. Remember that the purpose of the system is to produce and deliver talent to Pittsburgh. So I don't want to hear about Bubba Chandler or anybody else who's still in the minors. Although that's actually what's being evaluated in those rankings. The best players all this time later remain products of previous front offices. Brian Reynolds was a Neil Huntington acquisition. So was O'Neal Cruz. Kutch was a Dave Littlefield acquisition, and he was your best player yesterday. And within this system failure, and I don't know what other term you could possibly apply to it, there's almost nothing in this system from Latin America. How does that happen? How do more people not talk about this? There isn't a prospect in this system's top 15 that came from this organization's Latin American pipeline, such as it is. You're going to have to trust me when I tell you that they love it when you talk about payroll. They love it when you get angry with a bullpen guy who's blowing leads. They really love it when you pick on the manager. Manager doesn't, obviously, because all of that buries the real reason this team has lost 7 in a row. And that real reason is, sit down for it, they lack talent. When we come back, J1Q. This portion of Daily Shot of Pirates is brought to you by our friends at North Shore Tavern. That's directly across Federal Street from PNC Park. It's home of Steak on a Stone, an eating experience, underscoring the word experience. The steak is brought to you partially cooked on an 800-degree stone, and you do the rest. It's a ton of fun, it's a great meal, and it's a baseball atmosphere like no other in Pittsburgh. North Shore Tavern, right across Federal Street from PNC Park. Today's J1Q comes from Brad, who says, even with the trades that recently happened, there are legitimate holes going into 2025. First base, third base, center field, back end of the bullpen. The Pirates would need to spend in free agency before the season starts to complement the pitching that they have, and I'm not sure that they'll do that. Yeah, see, Brad, you're in the same state of mind I am today. I'm not thinking about small stuff. I'm thinking about what are we doing here? You know, in terms of analyzing this team, the way it operates. And if that feels, I don't know, herky-jerky based on, oh, they were so high a week ago, or, you know, they also did these good things, and they did, and they've battled. They continue to. There haven't been more rallies, more big hits at any point in the 2024 season than through this losing streak. That's the part that drives you nuts, but that's also the part that exposes that you need depth, that you need more talent, that what you've done to date isn't sufficient. If Nick Gonzalez, God love him, going down, pulls the plug on your entire season, then you didn't have a very good team to begin with. If a David Bednar or a Colin Holderman start flopping, yeah, that's going to have an impact, but it's not going to have 7 straight losses of impact. What's infinitely more telling is when you see the lineup written out every day and you see a 1 through 4 or even a 1 through 5 that you can live with, and then 6 through 9 is just forfeit. It's just an up and down forfeit, 6, 7, 8, 9, with very few exceptions. And I give credit to Michael A. Taylor, who's been hitting the ball better of late, but otherwise, just forget it. Those are entire innings that just get scrapped, thrown out of the mix. And that's a lack of talent. I'm with you that it would take free agency. It's not going to be third base. I saw that you mentioned that. And let's not kid ourselves as to why. Brian Hayes is going to get his, I was going to say chance. Brian Hayes is going to be here for a long time. But first base, center field, right field, and always, this applies to any season, relief help. You can never have enough relief help, and most of it does come through free agency. The good part is most of it's not very expensive. Other good thing about this scenario is that you probably don't need to go get starting pitching through that avenue. You can work with what you have, including getting a Chandler, a Braxton Ashcraft, a Thomas Harrington into the mix, certainly in Bradenton and maybe just a little bit beyond. But you're still talking about three everyday position players. First base, center field, and right field. And please do not mention to me Brian De La Cruz as that guy until we see the first blessed thing from him in a Pittsburgh uniform. That's a lot of holes. That's a lot of money. And you're right. If that's what you're implying, you're not going to see a lot of money. I've said myself that the current payroll being at $87 million, it has to get to 100. All right, so that's 13. That'd get you one of what you need, presuming that you go after a real player and don't horse around with it the way they did this past winter. But even that, as I'm saying, it is getting laughs at the moment. So, you got to have talent. You got to have talent from within. And I can tell you right now that I'm going to start swinging, at least on my end, some of the conversation in that direction, because it's been a half a decade. And the talent that's here in Pittsburgh, the talent that is in Indianapolis and Altoona and Greensboro and Bradenton, all the way down to the Dominican Summer League, is not good enough. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Pirates. I'm going to do another one of these tomorrow.